I just want to talk about the differences between people who lead with a judging function and then the difference between the extroverted judgers, so like the EJs, and the introverted judgers, the IPs, and also do the same thing kind of for the people who lead with a perceiving function, so the IJs and the EPs. So what I like noticed with the judges is the EJs, people usually see them as they seem very active and present in a way because they're always trying to influence their environment in a way. They like to organize their environment. They like to just be influential in that way. And so because it's a judging function, even though they're not necessarily always acting from their own opinion, they can seem to have a very strong opinion about things, like things should be done this way, you know? And usually the way that things should be done for them, it's kind of based on how other people feel about it. Since it is extroverted, so it cannot be really fully based on what they want. But I have to say, of course, your own opinion always plays a role too, and they, of course, sometimes they do check in with their own opinion. It's just a bit less strong. So the main difference with the IPs is there's this interesting thing where like the IPs, they're really quick to judge. Even, I think this is funny because when I compare myself with IPs, it's like, even though I'm the judger, like I'm an INFJ, so officially I'm a judger, but I don't lead with a judging function. So like, I feel like IPs, they are much quicker to judge than I am. It's almost like in their outer environment, IPs seem like really chill. They don't feel the need to influence their environment that much. They don't seem like commanding in any way. They're kind of just going with the flow. But they're still quick to judge and they are quick to share their opinion on stuff. And they usually have a very strong opinion on things. And for me, it's like I would have to look at the information first and then I will try to change my opinion or focus on my opinion. But in the end, for perceivers, their main focus is still being a bit more open-minded and kind of going over information over and over again. And also being a bit distant-minded because perceiving is something it's almost like you're just giving yourself space to focus on a lot of data. Either when you're an extroverted perceiver, you're focused on external data, but it's just taking in this information without judging it immediately. When you're an introverted perceiver, you try to give yourself space in your head for all this data. But I mean, you technically don't have a choice, but like you're naturally giving yourself space to look at all the data. And even if you want to judge, you're gonna be kind of slowed in your judgment, right? Because your brain is still like, well, first perceiving, then judging, so... The IJs can seem outwardly kind of like they judge a lot. They seem a bit active outwardly, like I want to influence my environment. But then, as a contrast, the IPs seem kind of like really chill in their environment. But once you start talking to them, they're like, oh, I have this really strong opinion about this. And they don't even necessarily have to say it, but it's like it's evident that that's kind of constantly what they're doing. They're constantly kind of evaluating, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about this? Whether it be introverted thinking or introverted feeling, that doesn't matter that much. It's just that The introvert feelers are going to be much more emotional than the introverted thinkers. And the funny thing is that people are often kind of focused on their third function a lot for some reason, because it kind of stands out to them. And their first function is a bit less obvious, because it's like they're doing that all the time anyways. You almost ignore it because it's kind of in the back of your mind. And then since you don't use your third function that much, it kind of stands out to you, I feel like. And it's more obvious when you're using it. So sometimes I can almost feel like my introverted thinking is very strong. But then whenever I encounter an IP, I'm like, oh wait, I don't lead with introverted thinking, you know? It's like I don't judge that quickly. I don't focus that much on judging. I'm still focusing on perceiving most of the time, which is the weird thing about the introverts, that their main function can be less apparent on the outside. But on the inside, it's still, you know, I'm still like, yeah, I'm a perceiver, even though I'm not called a perceiver, because on the outside, it doesn't really seem that way. Yeah, that's just a thought that I had. Kind of comparing what influence your first function has, and showing that it's funny how even though EJs and IPs seem so different, they still have a lot of similarities. And even though IJs and EPs seem so different, they also still have a lot of similarities, just because they either both lead with a judging function or they both lead with a perceiving function. And that still kind of creates those similarities.